In 2009, the football world was hit with shocking news. A young, talented footballer had died tragically in a car crash. Tributes poured in from all corners of the globe. Clubs held moments of silence. Fans mourned the loss of a player taken too soon, but there was just one small problem. He wasn't actually dead. This is the absolutely insane true story of Carlos Enrique Raposo, the footballer who fooled the entire world and then faked his own death just to escape being exposed. So, who is this guy? Carlos Enrique Raposo, better known as Carlos Kaiser, was born in Brazil back in 1963. Now, you have to understand, Brazil in the 70s and 80s was a football factory. Every street, every neighborhood seemed to have the next Pele, the next Zico, or the next Romario. Carlos saw this and wanted in. He craved the fame, the money, and the glamorous lifestyle of a top footballer. There was just one tiny issue. He was terrible at football. I mean, genuinely awful. He wasn't fast. He had no technical skill. He just wasn't good. But Carlos was something else. He was incredibly charismatic, handsome, and an elite-level liar. And those skills made him one of the greatest frauds the beautiful game has ever seen. How on earth did he become a professional footballer? Well, Carlos figured something out very early on in his master plan. You don't actually need to be good at football. You just need people to believe that you are. So, he did something that was pure genius. He started befriending real football stars. We're talking about legends like Romario, Bebeto, and Renato Gaucho. He partied with them, went to nightclubs with them, and took photos with them constantly. So when Carlos would show up at a new club claiming to be a hotshot striker who had played for other big teams, people actually believed him. Why wouldn't they? He looked the part, he talked like a pro, and most importantly, he had famous friends who could vouch for him. Before long, Carlos was signing professional contracts with some of Brazil's biggest clubs, Botafogo, Flamengo, Fluminense, Vasco da Gama. He went from one to the next, building a resume without ever kicking the ball. Now, this is where the story gets really crazy. Carlos never, ever wanted to actually play in a match. His entire career was built on avoiding the pitch. So every time he joined a new club, he had a system. Trick number one was the fake injury. He would show up to his first training session, do a few light runs, and then dramatically pull up, clutching his leg. "Oh, my hamstring is gone," he'd cry. Or "My groin is torn. My calf is completely destroyed." The clubs, of course, would send him straight to the medical department. But Carlos was always one step ahead. He would either bribe the doctors or find ways to trick them into signing off on his medical reports. Sometimes he'd befriend a dentist who would give him a note for a phantom dental issue. So he'd spend weeks or even months injured, all while still collecting a professional footballer's salary. His second trick was the phone call scam. Just before a big match, when the coach was starting to wonder when his new star signing would finally be fit, Carlos would deploy his secret weapon. He'd have a friend call the club, pretending to be a journalist, a sponsor, or even an official from another club in Europe. They'd deliver some urgent fake news like, "Carlos has received a surprise call-up to the national team," or "He picked up an injury while on international duty." And just like that, he'd get out of playing again. He even had a toy cell phone back in the day, before they were common, and he'd pretend to have loud conversations in English with so-called European clubs, talking about transfer offers, making himself seem like a highly sought-after talent. But eventually, his luck almost ran out. One club finally got suspicious. The owner had invested a lot of money to sign him and was getting tired of the excuses. The coach put his foot down and demanded that Carlos play. No more injuries, no more excuses. He was officially named in the squad for the upcoming match. Carlos was in a full-blown panic. He knew that the second he stepped onto that pitch, the entire stadium would realize he was a complete fraud. So with his back against the wall, sitting on the substitute's bench, he did something truly unbelievable. As the team was losing, he heard some fans behind the dugout insulting the players. Seeing his chance, he jumped over the barrier and started a massive fight with his own team supporters. Naturally, security dragged him away, and the referee gave him a red card before he even entered the game. The club owner was furious and fired him on the spot. But for Carlos, it was a victory. Just like that, he had escaped again, his secret still safe. Years went by, and Carlos was starting to run out of clubs to fool. His lies and his reputation were finally catching up with him. He was getting older, and the football world was getting smaller. So in 2009, he decided to pull off his most audacious stunt yet. News suddenly appeared in the Brazilian press. Carlos Henrique Raposo had died in a car crash. People actually believed it. Articles were written. Tributes were shared online. His former teammates mourned their friend. Carlos had officially killed off his own identity. Why would he do this? It was his ultimate escape, so that nobody would come looking for the money he owed, so that clubs would finally stop chasing him. It was his way of letting the grand football fraud finally come to an end. But in the modern world, the internet never forgets. A few years later, journalists started digging into the legend of Carlos Kaiser. They found inconsistencies in the story of his death and eventually discovered the unbelievable truth. Carlos was still alive, living a quiet life back in Rio de Janeiro. And when a film crew finally confronted him, he didn't deny a thing. He sat down and admitted everything, with a huge smile on his face. He confessed that he had spent over 20 years as a professional footballer without ever really playing football. In his own words, he said, "I never wanted to be a footballer. I just wanted to be treated like one." Carlos Kaiser never scored a goal. He never made an assist. He doesn't have a single highlight to his name. But he might just be the greatest con artist the game has ever seen. In a sport that is built on raw talent and hard work, he proved something truly terrifying. If you lie well enough, you might not need any of it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more unbelievable stories.